one and all, to dreadful Frights' first ever double feature screening at the Backlot, Perth, presented by Perth horror fans. I'm your host, Suxy the Salacious Spectre. We begin tonight by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging leaders. Tonight's first feature presentation is My Bloody Valentine. This 1981 Canadian horror slasher mystery thriller, directed by George Mihalka, who was approached by Cinepix Productions in mid-1980 to direct a slasher after the success of his previous film, 1980's Pickup Summer. And soon, John Beard was brought on to write the screenplay. The film was originally called The Secret. However, the producers made the decision to change it to My Bloody Valentine, so to overtly reference the holiday serial killer trend, which had started to make a lot of traction in the industry at the time. The movie was entirely conceived and produced in a little over 1 year, and shot on location in the Sydney mines of Nova Scotia in the fall of 1980. Starring Paul Kelman, Neil Affleck, and Laurie Hallier, who arrived on set several weeks after the other actors, as she was studying at the National Theatre School of Canada at the time. And George was so intent on casting her in the role of Sarah that he convinced her academic advisors to allow her to finish her course a semester early in order to secure her for their tight filming schedule. The crew were ordered to keep the identity of the killer a secret from the cast until the end of production, when the final scene was shot, in order to assure that the actors played their parts in an ambiguous manner. In reality, the mine chosen to be the Hanniger mine was actually called the Princess Colliery mine, which had closed in 1975. Those particular mines were chosen for their rustic appearance, but when the locals heard that a movie was to be shot there, they decided to put their funds together and ended up spending a grand total of $50,000 to have the mines painted and cleaned, similarly to a Disneyland set, much to the dismay of the filmmakers, as this completely diminished the reasons the production wanted the location in the first place. And sadly, another $75,000 of the film's budget was spent to return the mines to their original state before shooting. The location itself was rather challenging for the filmmakers, as the mines were located 820 meters underground, and filming became a very lengthy process due to the limited space in the elevators, and it would take an hour to transport the cast and crew to the location. On top of that, lighting had to be carefully planned, as the number of bulbs that could safely be utilized was strictly limited, as there was an ever-present potential danger of methane explosions. While not being credited on the film itself, the vocals for the end credits song, The Ballad of Harry Warden, as well as other musical cues heard throughout the film, were provided by Scottish-Canadian tenor John McDermott, who was just out of school at the time and given the opportunity to record the vocals by the film's composer and his longtime family friend, Paul Zaza. Upon release, My Bloody Valentine was hated by the critics for both its depiction of violence and gore and the fact that it had been partially financed by the Canadian Film Development Corporation, with John Dodd of the Edmonton Journal calling it out for being a rip-off of 1978's Halloween, saying, "All this perverted gore is brought to you thanks to the financial help of the Canadian Film Development Corp., which uses your own tax money to help greedy, talentless producers make a killing. You should pardon the expression." Meanwhile, the film itself suffered terribly due to censorship. In order to award the film with an R rating, the Motion Picture Association of America requested cuts to every death sequence, with producer John Dunning stating that it was essentially cut to ribbons in order to achieve that rating. Even after cutting the film to match the requirements, it was again returned to an X rating, and further cuts were demanded, and although the UK version was past X and never cut by the British Board of Film Classifications, the print used was culled from the US R-rated version, with an additional closing shot of an arm being ripped off, which was not present in the later release, and the film was cut so much in Singapore that it was given a PG rating on the VHS release. In fact, according to makeup effects artist Thomas R. Berman, one of his gory creations was so realistic that the director threw up at the sight of it. The uncensored cut of My Bloody Valentine remained hidden from the public for nearly 30 years after its original theatrical release, when Paramount released the film in North America for the first time in 2002, when the studio claimed that the alleged missing footage did not exist. However, in 2008, Lionsgate licensed the home video rights to the film after producing the 2009 remake, My Bloody Valentine 3D, and in the process acquired a copy with excised footage never before seen in the standard theatrical cut. In January of 2009, Lionsgate, under license from Paramount, released an unrated Region 1 Special Edition DVD and Blu-ray featuring the footage. However, it has been fiercely argued that this edition is still missing additional footage. Tonight's screening is of the R-rated release, but we highly recommend seeking out the special edition release to compare the two for yourself. The original My Bloody Valentine has gone on to become a cult classic, which has really made a comeback in pop culture, with a recent novelization by Armando Munoz hitting shelves earlier this year, along with a retro board game based on the film by Stop the Killer. And now the fan-made sequel Valentine Bluffs, which you will be witness to later tonight. And now, My Bloody Valentine.